Nothing about that basketball game was good. Nothing. This is Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by LinkedIn. Thank you for making it your first listen today and every day. I do appreciate that. We're the only place bringing you your team, Baylor, every day. That's not coming straight from the university. And that's probably a good thing for today's episode. If you are looking for someone to give a positive spin on that game last night against Kansas State, if you are looking for someone to sugarcoat it, go listen to Inside Baylor Sports, man. I can't help you. And I get complaints all the time. It doesn't really bother me, but I do want to make it clear. It is not my job to sugarcoat things and make Baylor University shine. It is to give you an honest assessment of what we are watching in the world of Baylor sports. And of course, I want it to be positive because I love Baylor. I'm a huge Baylor fan. And I'm recording this minutes after the game ended. And so maybe there's some emotion to this, but I cannot find something positive from last night's loss. I can't. I'm sorry. I just can't do it. There were some individual players who did some nice things, but I can't sit here and tell you that Baylor didn't absolutely piss that game away, because they did. And we'll get into it. The shooting is one of the worst shooting performances I've ever seen at any level outside of freshman girls basketball. But there were other things Baylor could have done early in the game to combat that, which they have done at certain points this season. They didn't do it tonight. And I apologize. I'm going to treat this like the post-game show. I couldn't do one last night. I'll spare you the technical details there, but basically I couldn't link my software, which has, if you're watching on YouTube, it's got all the rundown and everything. Couldn't connect that to my YouTube channel. So I could create a video, but I couldn't actually record it. So that was a brilliant thing to happen only on what would have been one of the biggest post games of the year. No big deal. So sorry about that. Wish I could take ownership for it. It's not actually really anyone's fault. It's just a stupid technical thing. So if my bosses are listening, it truly isn't your fault either. Anyway, Baylor loses 68-64 overtime at Kansas State. Third straight loss to the Wildcats. Jerome Tang is now 3-0 against his mentor, Scott Drew, and just an abomination of a basketball game. We have now seen, for the fourth conference game out of 4, Baylor play down to their competition yet again. And having the 3 wins before that is impressive, to play the other team's game and beat them at it. And the only one that really hooked up with their game was BYU. You knew you were going to beat them in that style of play. But Kansas State wanted a rock fight last night, and Baylor gave it to them. We'll have to start with the shooting. Putrid, just god-awful. Set college basketball offenses back generations. It was just horrific. And I know that there are certain things that you can't control in that. I get that. They shoot 33% from the floor, 25 of 76. They put up 22 more shots than Kansas State and freaking lost. And 18% from 3, 5 for 28. Oh, but Cam, they could put their head down, get to the free throw line, and beat a team there. No, they can't. Because most disgusting of all, they shoot 47% from the free throw line. I said this last game. You can't keep shooting 70% or below from the free throw line and be a top 10 team. Can't do it. Guess what? You're not going to be, and you shot way below 70%. That's embarrassing. That is awful. That cannot happen at this level. I don't care if you're playing on the moon. That cannot happen. And I get you can only control so much of if the ball's going in or not from three. But 18 GD%, man, come on. This was far and away the best three-point shooting team in the nation with percentage and how few they were taking compared to that percentage. It was whimsical. And I know the defenses are better, but that is 3 of your 4 conference games. You have shot 25% or worse. That's freaking awful, man. That's terrible. And it wasn't falling against Oklahoma State. They go 2 for 16 in that game last Saturday. And they win the game in overtime because they put their head down. They got to the basket. They got to the free throw line. They hit enough free throws in that game. Oklahoma State missed quite a few as well. Kansas State shot 77% from the line today, 17 of 22. And you were able to combat that. Instead, what Baylor did tonight is they just kept shooting more. You went 2 for 16 in that game against Oklahoma State because you knew it was a bad shooting night. Tonight, they attempted 28. And 2 of the 5 hits they have are in overtime. So you needed 40-plus minutes to get to 5 3-pointers made. God, that is disgusting, man. That's so bad. And what just makes it worse is they just kept shooting it. They said it on the broadcast during the game, and I couldn't agree more with Spatola. They weren't even good shots. In Oklahoma State, they were missing open threes. That happens sometimes. It happens once a year for a good three-point shooting team where everyone just goes stone cold. Last night, they just kept shooting. Step backs, off the dribble, contested threes, falling away. What the heck was that, man? You got to know your limits. And they've got 2 really impressive big men. They've got guards, I think, who can get to the basket. And I know Kansas State is a good defensive team, but what am I even saying? Because I was about to say, get your head down and get to the free throw line, but what freaking good would that do you? There was a point in the second half, which, by the way, I'll start with this. Yves Missi was the only one I thought gave you some impressive minutes tonight in that he was gritty as heck. He and Josh O, both centers, really gave you a ton of grit. For the first time this season, we've really seen that from Yves Missi in that game last night. Battling, getting physical, ripping down rebounds on the offensive end. But yet there was a stretch in the second half where they kept feeding Missi, and he had 3 straight layup attempts and missed them all because he was fouled on all 3. And I think that was strategic by Kansas State. If you let him get a layup, he's going to beat us. But if we put him to the free throw line, he sure as heck ain't. And in those 3 trips to the free throw line, 6 shots, he hit 2. Already, bang, Kansas State +4 just by fouling your center. Go to the free throw line. What do we care? +4 on that. They win the game by 4 points. By the way, Baylor ends the game 0 of 5, and their last 5 in field goals. Kansas State ends it on a 9-0 run in a minute. In overtime. You gift them a 4-point play for some reason. Lord only knows why. I don't get it. This is a team that allowed Tech to go 14-4 against them in the last, 2 minutes of that game on Saturday. They can't close teams out except for Baylor. Oh, that is just awful. It just can't be acceptable. If you have a bad 3-point shooting night, that's one thing. But you suck shooting from any point of the floor. You took bad shots and you couldn't hit a damn free throw. That just can't happen. And boy, that ended regulation. Talk about things that can't happen. Oh, I'll talk about it. That's for sure. First, I got to tell you about LinkedIn Talent Solutions. Okay, it's the start of the new year. You small businesses, you're looking to hire, only one place to go. That's LinkedIn Talent Solutions. And it ain't just like any other job board, okay? It's got a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. And hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn also shows that small businesses are wearing so many hats. They know that. They know it's not easy to just go out there and hire. So thankfully with them, it's intuitive, it's quick, it's easy. You can post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Jaden Nunn, man. I don't know what happened in the last 30 seconds of regulation. He makes a really nice offensive play, by the way, gets to the basket, scores, gives them the 1-point lead. And then, 45 feet from the basket in their own backcourt, he fouls a 94% free throw shooter and is lucky. I mean, all his prayers answered when the kid misses one somehow. That's the only reason we went to overtime is because he missed one. I mean, they basically gave them the lead right there and they didn't take it. I'm gonna give some sympathy here because I was just livid at the time. Just could not believe he did that. Saw plenty of replays. I don't really think it's a foul. I think it's incidental contact. But you can't put yourself in that situation, man. I know he's being aggressive, but you got to know who you're going against. You got to know it's the double bonus. I just can't stand that. I can't have that. And to make matters worse, the last possession, he gets the ball on the wing, fakes a three. The kid jumps out of the gym that's defending him. He's totally out of the play. And he's got a whole lane ahead of him. Can get to the block without anyone even touching him. And instead, he takes a three. Even on a bad shooting night, if Jacoby Walter's taking that, that's one thing. But you're not even a good three-point shooter to begin with. And you have a lane to the basket to win the freaking game. And he takes a three on a night where they shoot 18% from three. If that doesn't make you lose your freaking mind, I don't know what will. Because there's so many things to point to that says no excuse for losing this game. That's one of them. Also having a 5-point lead with a minute left of overtime and the ball, that would be another one too. Instead, you let Kansas State, with their best scorer on the bench, go 9-0 to end the game. And this man does not get a lot of criticism, and rightfully so. He doesn't deserve much criticism. But Scott, 14 seconds left, tie ball game. You cannot hit the broadside of a barn on this night. And you're just keeping that timeout in your pocket for Saturday, presumably? What the heck was that, man? On a night where you guys can't hit any shots, any kind of jump shots. You don't think maybe it's a good idea to call a timeout, put something on the clipboard, try to get a layup the way Jerome Tang did a few possessions before? I don't get that. I just don't get that. And I'm sure it's for some moral lesson down the line, but bottom line is you just lost to what I think is a good team in Kansas State, but an unranked team. We talk every episode about how there's no landing spots in this conference. No game is easy. That said, even if the conference champion has 5 or 6 losses, they're going to be to the top teams, man. They're going to be losing to Kansas and Houston and TCU and Iowa State, and you just lost to a team that wasn't even receiving votes. You have to win those games. You have to, especially when you're the better team, man. But with all those boneheaded decisions and that horrific, just god-awful shooting performance, you lose. We're going to be looking at that one at the end of the year when Kansas State is clawing and just grasping at anything and are on the first 4 out and saying, boy, I know it was on the road, but we shouldn't have lost that game. By the way, you've been there since Sunday. You got to practice a couple of times in Bramlage. So I don't want to, shooters will sometimes complain they're not used to the environment, to the rim, or to whatever, the floor. You can't even use that excuse. I mean, petition the NCAA. See if they put saran wrap on the rim. See if the rims are regulation size. I don't know. But that was so bad. I cannot spin it. I can't. And so many other things were going Baylor's way that should have led them to winning this game. Talk about the shooting performance, and there's just no other way to cut it. It's from a Scott Drew team, purely wise. And, there were times in that first half where I liked the way they were playing. They weren't hitting shots, but they were playing good defense. They were turning Kansas State over, and they were at least getting good looks. Second half, those good looks went away. Fugazi. It's gone. It doesn't exist. But you win the turnover battle by 6. You turn them over 17 times, and you lost. You won the rebounding battle by 7. You won the offensive rebounding battle by 14, and you lost. You beat them in bench points. You doubled them up in second chance points. And you lost the game to an unranked team, to a team that wasn't even deemed good enough to receive votes to get ranked. I think we need to bring it up. Can this team play on the road? Can they? Because coincidentally, the 2 road games they've played in have been far and away their worst shooting performances of the year. And they went to overtime for both. You think that overtime win even looks good against Oklahoma State? They stink, man. They're terrible. I'm recording this the night of the game. I haven't checked how bad they lost to Kansas, but they've lost, I'm guessing, because they were getting their butts kicked, that they probably lost that game by double digits too, which would make 3 straight losses by double digits since they took Baylor to overtime. Could this team play on the road? I know it's all about defending your home court first and foremost, but if you can't win on the road, that's a long season, man. Gave up 14 points in overtime. Kansas State. Come on. Give me a break. Give me a break. Ugh. I mean, just these shooting numbers, man. Jaden Nunn, 3 of 10. Jacoby Walter, 3 of 11. Ray J. Dennis, 2 of 15. Good Lord, man. Bridges, 5 of 13. Misi, 3 of 8. Love, 6 of 14. God, how are you going to beat anybody doing that? Ugh. I don't know what to say. I know I'm going catatonic here. I can't sit here and say, oh, just another night in the Big 12. I can't do that. Yeah, it was a dogfight, man. It was a battle. They're all going to be like that, but I don't care, man. If you're supposed to be a top 10 team and a top 10 offense, you've got to give me something better than 33%, 18%, 47%. You've got to give me something better than that, or you're not serious. Or we're playing the same game we did last year, where Baylor isn't for real, and they're the best unserious team in America. I like to think that we're not that this year. In my heart of hearts, I do. But this is 2 absolute clunkers on the road. And you're a couple of bounces away from losing to 2 teams at the bottom half of this conference before you even got to the meat of the schedule, man. Oh, if you're going to shoot, if that's what the team you're going to be, and you're going to not shoot better than 25% from three against any of your conference opponents, how in the world are you going to beat TCU, Iowa State, Texas Tech, let alone Kansas or Houston, or even Texas on Saturday? How are you going to beat those teams doing that? Lord only knows, man. Lord only knows. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. That's America's #1 sports book. There's still time to get on the action. We're about to go into, I think, still the best football weekend of the year. Super Wildcard Weekend's great, everything. But you only have one good game. Divisional rounds where it's at, man. Those 4 games, going to be good stuff. That's the time to get in on it, man. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is so easy to use, and there's so many different ways you could do it. They've got the live same game parlay hub. You can see what other people are parlaying. You can do over/under spreads, player props, which I like to do a lot. Any of that stuff you could do. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Today's episode is also brought to you by Jase Medical. And, it's my favorite script, guys. We need to get serious here, okay? There are things more important than Baylor losing to Kansas State in a basketball game. All right, maybe. Okay, according to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics like amoxicillin right in the middle of the worst flu season in over a decade. And I don't know about y'all, but that's scary to me. I can't imagine a more helpless feeling than one of my loved ones getting sick, and then there's a supply chain issue that kept them from those life-saving medications. Thankfully, we're going to be okay because of the Jase case. The Jase case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics that treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, skin infections, among many other things. It can happen to any one of us. So visit jasemedical.com and complete that physician encounter. You are going to get heard from a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. That's jasemedical.com, JASE medical.com, and use the offer code LOCKED ON to get $20 off that first order. I think this might be Baylor's bogey team going forward, to use a soccer term, where you face this one team, doesn't matter how good they are, how good you are, you're going to lose to them, or you're not going to play your best. It's TCU in football, thank God, our biggest rival, the ones we can't beat. It's looking like Jerome Tang in basketball. Because, last year, K-State was on a heater going into that first game. Baylor was 0-2 in the conference, but playing at home, you lose in overtime. The next time, you're on a pretty good run, Baylor, if I'm not mistaken, and you still lose by double digits to Kansas State. And then this time, you are a much better team on paper than Kansas State. They just lost a heartbreaker the game before. They're really scrambling to find out what their best 5 is, and bang, you lose again. You have the talent advantage over them. You have the depth advantage over them, and you lose again. Is Scott Drew going to beat Jerome Tang? Heck if I know at this point, man. I mean, this was just terrible. I'm sorry. I hate to be so doom and gloom, but I don't know what else to tell you. We're going to preview Texas later in the week, but I don't like how that's shaping up. I don't think Texas is that good at a basketball team, to be totally honest with you. I think they're okay. I think Baylor's much better, but I've been fooled before. And they like Kansas State they're desperate for a win. And you're playing them at home, in Austin, I should say, at their home at 11 a.m. on Saturday. You've got a game plan. You have to practice around finding ways to score when you're shooting under 25% from 3, because that's what this team is now. And it'll be a while until they're out of the top 5 or top 10 of 3-point percentage because of how well they shot it in the non-conference. But that's what you are right now. You're not a 3-point shooting team. You can't do that 3 out of 4. If you do it once, you're shooting 20, 25%. You're still a 3-point shooting team. You had a bad night. But 3 out of 4 with high volume, 28 threes attempted in 45 minutes tonight. That's not your bread and butter anymore. You could still be a good offensive team because I think this team can score inside. They've shown us that before. You got to get more balanced or something, man. That's the thing. I think there's still a ton of offensive potential here. And the defense played pretty well most of the night, again, until it mattered. But I think this is still a good offensive team in here. But you've got to get versatile, which I think you have the option of doing. We saw it against Oklahoma State. We saw it a little bit against BYU. That was the only time in conference they have shot it well. And we definitely saw it against Cincinnati. So show me something on Saturday against Texas, because they're licking their chops right now. They've got their own problems to worry about, but they're seeing, you see the way Baylor shot it? They're coming into our house where they used to win all the time. No, we're gonna fight like dogs in that game, and we're gonna knock them out of the top 10 easy. That's what they're thinking down there in Austin right now. Anyway, I don't have access to the post-game presser tonight. That won't happen until tomorrow morning. So I'm excited to put that into part of, what is that, Thursday's show. We'll be back with more, probably even more post-mortem tomorrow. And I will try to bring myself down a little bit, sleep on it, and see how my opinion changes. But I don't know, man. And it's a weird thing where I still like this team a lot, but there's more work to do than I thought there was going to be on January 17th. That's all. It's more, I'm more upset that, like, obviously you're going to lose a couple games in this conference. I get that. I'm no fool to that. But I just have this fear we're going to look back and say, oh, we lost that one. That's why we didn't win the Big 12 championship, because we lost to Kansas State, that game that we shot 18% from three, and we fouled a 94% free throw shooter at the end of regulation, and we let them go on a 9-0 run to end overtime. Ugh, give me the ick. That's all I think about it, really. Baylor could win by 20 on Saturday. I don't know that they will, but they could. You guys have softened me up. You got me positive at the end of this. Again, I do think this is a good team. And there are still days where I get worried it's last year's team, like today, going 5 or 6 minutes without field goals, 5 or 6 minutes without points, and shooting 47% from the free throw line. Good Lord, help us all. But there's just so much that needs to get back to the drawing board on January 17th. And I believe in this coach. I believe in this roster. So let's turn it around, boys. But now's the time to talk about how horrific this was. All right. We'll be back tomorrow. Thank you for making it your first listen today and every day. We really appreciate it. This is your team every day. We're the only ones that's giving you nothing but Baylor athletic content every single day that's not coming straight from the university. Apologies, we couldn't do a real live post-game show. We're hoping to get that fixed and have that ready for Saturday's game against Texas. We'll also talk about the women's game a little bit tomorrow. And anyway, Second Bears, this is Locked On Baylor.